Welcome back to Track Talk. We're going to be doing a game of 1849. I selected this game because it's another IFT start. I think we have one of these on the channel already, but it's always interesting to see how players navigate, an early IFT. In terms of the company order, the ATA will be following that. AFG, RCS, and the two kind of worst companies are actually last in order, other than the early IFT, of course. So hopefully we'll see an exciting match here. MJ Mill leading us off in the auction. He's going on the teleport, and Comics Reader will be going on the mountain busting. Corian taking the port, and Vant Dog rounding us off with another bid on the teleport. So one contested private, and MJ Mill being on that private is probably not incentivized to pull here, and will join on the mountain busting. So Comics Reader, similar situation that MJ Mill was just in, may want to go on the port tile or port private. Instead, he will be opening up the auction for the IFT presidency. And I think this means that we'll see Corian probably just pull here. Given that the IFT is first, and there's some good companies following it, you may not want to spend too much on privates here, because you can basically be assured that you'll be starting a pretty good company once this IFT blocker is out of the way. So for instance, the ATA, AFG, both pretty good companies. So I don't imagine that Corian will be bidding on another private here. Probably just happy to pull. Let's see. He does. And along that same logic, MJ Mill, Comics Reader, and Vant Dog may not want to bid things up very much either. MJ Mill, he's on the Mountain Buster and the teleport. May want to put one more bid on the Mountain Buster and then just pass out and try and take the teleport company. Looks like Comics is going up, and does MJ Mill follow? He does, and Comics gives it to him. Corian gets the naval company for only 80, and we'll see how much they want to contest the teleport. Looks like they're going up pretty good, actually. 140 already, 150, and they are taking this way, way high. So probably overpaying at this point for this private. Vant Dog, I assume he doesn't want to leave without a private. So MJ Mill is putting him through his paces, but similarly, I can't imagine MJ Mill really wants to pay this much for this private. But he will be forced to. Vant Dog is happy to just pass out, and this will lead Comics Reader with the IFT, and we'll see where he wants to par this. He pars it for max, and Vant Dog has priority with no privates. He immediately jumps onto the ATA, and MJ Mill could go for the AFG, but is pretty cash poor as a result of overpaying for the naval, or I guess the maritime private. So may have to pass here just by paying share. Vant Dog buying more shares of the ATA, and MJ Mill helping, or not helping, but investing along with him. Comics Reader, he has the IFT, may just look to buy another share for a little bit extra money in the IFT. He's going to need a ton of cash in this company to really lay any meaningful track, so may need some help from other players even. So we'll see what Comics Reader wants to do here, and he actually pars the AFG, and now we'll be placing its home token, and it looks like he takes Terra Nova. The RCS is next available. RCS with such an expensive token fee is kind of a hard sale early in the game. Going to be hard to buy expensive trains or even cheap trains with the RCS. We'll see if Corian wants to take advantage of this. He is instead investing in the IFT. Comics is probably happy for the help. Corian doesn't have enough money to steal the presidency and really should not be leaving with priority on Comics at this point. So he's probably secure in this presidency. I think almost assuredly secured. Vant Dog, a little bit more money, and he buys another ATA. This treasury is being depleted rather quickly. Corian, is he going to continue buying shares here? It looks like he passes. So this will lead MJ Mill with priority, and the IFT is first operate, has a few extra bucks as a result of Corian's investment, but still going to have a hard time developing track. He is passing track lay and may not even buy a train here. Does not. AFG, he is laying towards Ragusa and probably will pick up, well, I guess he will have to issue shares if he wants more than one train, but probably just going to pick up one. He buys the 4H, didn't issue any shares. ATA can pick up two trains, but is going to have a hard time running two trains in yellow. Will need to wait to green. And with the IFT just kind of waiting things out, he may not have an easy way to get into green before another company floats. So he buys a single 4, and we're into the next stock round. Just looking at the game state for a moment, if things were to stall in yellow here, technically MJ Mill has the greatest private revenue, and he's pretty closely followed by the IFT president. Unfortunately, the IFT president has two shares that are going to be falling back each turn, so going to be a little bit hard for him to keep up. Vantdog, he has a ton of shares in the ATA and has better track, but with only one 4 train, his revenue is not going to be all that impressive. May look to buy a second 4 train here. MJ Mill, he's buying the AFG, and Corian, he is actually dumping out of the IFT. Sorry, no, he was not the president, so he's just selling the IFT and realizing it's probably going to be waiting until green to operate. No sense in holding that share. Looks to probably invest his money elsewhere, and will buy a AFG. Vantdog passing, MJ Mill passing, and Corian could pressure for the presidency of the AFG. Comics Reader really has no way to defend. But it looks like Corian is just going to spread his cash around, has one more share he can buy, and buys the AFG. Maybe now realizing that if he were to sell his ATA, he could potentially, he would take this presidency, and we'll see if he values that or not. Looks like he does. Maybe just not realizing at first that comics couldn't defend. So he has now secured himself a presidency, and Comics Reader is stuck with the presidency of the IFT, but still has paying shares at least. This will leave Vantdog with priority, and we go into the next operating round. So Corian now running the AFG, only has a single train still, heading up towards the SFA start, and does he buy a second train here? He does, kind of as expected. IFT, probably passing again, can't really buy into greens on his own. So just kind of gradually falling back. ATA, he is stuck in yellow, just running his 4 train for 30, which he pays. He buys the last 4 train, and I think we'll probably see the IFT buy into green to open up some track options for it. He actually buys into green here. This is a big help for the IFT, and the ATA is going to probably struggle to run 3 trains for a while. Doesn't have the cash to upgrade Ragusa, can't upgrade its home to get into the port, which I'm sure we'll see, but it's going to be reliant on other players' help unless he wants to start issuing. He's passing issuing for now. Vantdog, really not enough cash for shares, could pick up an ATA off the market, and does. MJ Mill also with exactly enough cash for an ATA, and is just going to pass. Comic Reader may want to pick up his own IFT. It's going to start running soon, but it's probably going to have less revenue than these other 2 companies, so maybe just sits on 2 share presidency for now. Looks like he'll buy an ATA with 3 trains, definitely an attractive option. Corian, not enough cash to pick up the double share, which has just been exposed. Could sell an AFG for it, but would run the risk of losing that presidency. Looks like he'll pass, and nobody else is going for the double share either. This is pretty good news for Corian, who will leave with priority and have access to that double share. There's really no way for Vantdog to protect it. He can't redeem shares to bury it. AFG operating, does have access to green tiles, may upgrade, well, only has a 4 train, so probably not upgrading Syracuse. Could upgrade Ragusa, but I don't know that he wants to pay the terrain cost for it. Could also just lay normal track towards the SFA still. So he is, looks like maybe teleporting and, oh, sorry, no, he's just buying in his privates. And now he is upgrading Ragusa, so that's great news for the ATA who can token and run his 3 trains. Does he have a token? He should. So that will allow him to increase his revenue quite a bit. ATA running for 140 has laid his port bonus and pays out for 140. Also securing himself a 6H. IFT upgrades his home and should be buying a 6 train here, has just enough cash. So a little bit of a slow start for comics, but he did get some decent revenue from his privates. Could definitely have been much worse for him, but this is kind of the hard part of the IFT is that you just have really limited options early in the game. He's passing issuing shares, and the ATA now should be tokening Ragusa and probably running 3 trains. Upgrades his home, and actually tokens Terra Nova, that's fine, and is running for 220. Very nice for Vantog. We will see the next operating round in this set. AFG, kind of limited track, could start laying more expensive track, but really doesn't have the cash to do it. So I think only option is lay up to SFA if he wants. He will for now, running 3 trains, and he's paying for only 180, so a little bit worse than the ATA. IFT, first run for him, probably will head up north. Not going to be the most impressive run, but at least it's not falling back or continuing to fall back. Does have a very healthy treasury, so we'll start building up some cash. And runs for 80, which it pays. ATA should have nice revenue still. Could look to link up to Terra Nova for a second run, but would have to lay a narrow gauge track, which is always kind of unappealing. Looks like instead he'll start trying to get over to Catania. Does have a monopoly on that track for now, just because Syracuse is a single whole city. Running the same route and paying for 220, 230. We're into the next stock round. Corian has a ton of cash as a result of his private buy-ins and should probably be snapping up this double share of the ATA. 3 trains, it's a pretty healthy company. The 8 train is kind of staring down the tracks, but I think that the ATA should be able to, survive the rusting event. MJ Mill, I'm just noticing, didn't buy in his privates, and well, that makes sense. He's not a president, so didn't have the opportunity to. I expect we'll see him starting to sell out of these shares and trying to start his own company. But again, that RCS is a little bit of a hard sell when you don't have a lot of capital to invest in it. Corian, he is selling out of the AFG. Not a whole lot of cash in this company and non-permanent trains. So it looks like he's probably going to be starting the RCS for a max par here. He does, and is just buying his bonus shares. So a well-capitalized company, going to be operating first. Vantdog, he is buying the sold AFG, so nobody's interested in this ATA double share. Even if these 4 trains rust, which now that the RCS is floated looks much more likely, still worthwhile having a double share, at least for the late game. MJ Mill, he is buying a share of the RCS. That'll be his one purchase. He's going to struggle to invest his cash. He's already fallen behind in this game a little bit. Comics Reader, he is buying an AFG cheap share as well. Corian buying the IFT. Vantdog buying AFG. I don't imagine that he wants to take this presidency. Would be pretty greedy to run 2 companies with 3 non-permanent trains and depleted treasuries. But he's opening himself up for a dump here. Comics Reader may take him up on that if he's not careful. Comics Reader buying his IFT share, getting a little money into the company, and we'll see if Vantdog wants to pressure for this presidency or not. He is. We'll see if Comics Reader has any interest in just giving it to him. So we may see Vantdog sell a share, to buy a fourth AFG, at which point Comics Reader may want to just sell out. So he's just trashing the value of this company, putting a ton of shares into the market, and has exposed another double share. So two of these are available, but they're both in companies that may be a little bit tenuous when this A train comes out. He is now buying an IFT and is almost certainly going to be going last in priority. So we'll see if this is worthwhile. If the A train doesn't come out, he's probably going to regret that selling these two shares. Continuing to invest in the IFT, capitalizing this company, making it a little bit more likely that we will sell this 8. The RCS has cash to do it on its own, though, and I imagine he's motivated to do so since he's really not invested in any of these 4 trains at this point. Pantog buying more IFT. So now he's pressuring the presidency of the IFT. Comics Reader may be more motivated to defend the IFT than he was the AFG. We'll see. Looks like he's going to pass and potentially he's going to lose the presidency here. So he buys this. Now, Comics Reader can respond by buying that double share and stealing the presidency back, but it's going to be pretty expensive for him to do it. I don't know that he can actually afford it. He has $42, another 56 brings him up to 90, and he's going to need 120. So by selling the ATA, he should be able to do it. He's just going to pass. That's surprising. 3 double shares exposed, and nobody's motivated to snap them up. This will leave MJ Mill with priority, so he should have a nice opportunity to pick himself up some double shares if he wants. 2 of these companies have the ability to cover their double shares by redeeming shares, the AFG. And actually, the other 2 companies don't. I thought that there were 2 of them that did. RCS first operation, starting to lay towards the west. Buys a 6 and probably will pick up the 8 here as well. He does. Bad news for Comic Book Reader. IFT, stolen presidency, and he will link up down into the port. Is going to increase his run a fair amount now, which he pays out. Buying an 8 as well, so 2 trains for him. Going to have trouble developing great routes for these trains, especially with that Messina tile being prone to exploding. He's also buying a company or a train out of his second company and just shuffling a little bit more cash into that. Does he have priority? He is going last in priority, so not going to be able to dump this with no cash on Comics Reader unless Comics Reader allows it. ATA, trainless. Because his 6 is bought by the other company, so we'll have to force buy a train here. Laying the Messina track, and he is actually emergency buying a train, it looks like. So very aggressive play. He's really pushing for trains, and actually secures the last 8. There's a 10 available, but it's going to be quite expensive, very hard for the AFG player to afford this train. AFG running a single 6, and he's actually withholding for 110. Going to have to do this again if he wants a permanent train, it looks like. RCS running 2 trains, able to double tap Palermo, but he's not able to run 2 trains unless he lays the DIT here, so may need to do that instead of upgrading Palermo. And I think he's just running 1 train right now. A little bit surprised to see that. Running for 70, which he pays. IFT now with 3 trains. With a single token, not going to be able to run all 3 of them. Could token Messina, but will lose that token if he does so. But again, he may want to try and force Comics Reader to sell out here, make that company a little less appealing by losing that token. And he does do that. Of course, the collaborated tile is not amazing. until later in the game. So not going to have the highest revenue, but is much better with running 3 trains than it otherwise would be. Running for 370, and he pays that out. AFG, running just his 6 train. Does he withhold again? He does, but still just not quite enough for the permanent train. He's in a really rough spot. And ATA, he can reap the benefit of the IFT lays. Same president, of course, so they are laying synergistic track. He has secured himself the tile in, or the token in Catania. I don't think I noticed that in the past. So running both companies along the East Coast, very strong position for him. Does need to be a little bit careful about permanent trains breaking and rusting his trains, since he bought the cheap trains so aggressively, but has set himself up in quite a powerful position. Running for 200, which he pays. He's going to shuffle trains around a little bit and run 2 trains in both of his companies, it looks like. So we'll see MJ Mill with just 120 bucks. Comics Reader has the most, second most cash, and priority on Vantdog. So unless MJ Mill wants to sell a share to buy this IFT double share, we may see Comics Reader steal the presidency. Vantdog has done a pretty nice job of making the company a little bit less appealing for this, though, by leaving it with just 2 6s and only $75. So I think he's well aware of the danger here. MJ Mill, he is actually selling, may look to steal this double share, and does. So Comics Reader's aspirations have been crushed, and he will have to look elsewhere for his shares. Could pick up the ATA double share. It's cheaper and probably will have higher revenue. Also, the trains are less likely to rush. So not the end of the world there, and that's what he does. That presidency is in theory vulnerable, but Vantdog should have no trouble defending. Corian, he is the RCS president and really doesn't have that much cash. Fortunately for him, some of these shares are pretty cheap. Could look towards the AFG double share. It would be a safe investment, at least for now, because the market's full, but that company may not be the most appealing company in general. Still reasonable to pick up a double share, though. So instead, he will buy an ATA. This company will probably sell out. I imagine Vantdog buys a share here, and does. MJ Mill out of cash. Comics Reader, he buys the double share of his own company. A nice pickup for him. Corian, also buying market shares of the AFG. Vantdog still has a ton of cash to invest, and will buy the AFG. And I imagine we'll just see the AFG sell out here. Nobody really wants these RCS shares. Low revenue, high prices of the stock. One more share or 2 more shares of the AFG. Probably both will go to Vantdog. Instead, he is passing, so prioritizing priority. And looks like we will see Corian with priority now. Does that leave any dump opportunities for Vantdog? It does. So the IFT, potentially dangerous. Could also, in theory, dump the ATA, but that company is healthier with 2 A-trains. RCS still has pretty underwhelming runs and not going to improve it at all, so still running for 70. Not able to take advantage of his 2 trains. Issuing shares, looking to push trains, it looks like, in the next operating round. IFT running 2 6 trains should have very nice revenue, and he's going to start working in the way over to RCS. Does need to be a little bit careful because he's going to be losing this Messina token and is not able to double token it as he's used the tokens of the ATA down south already. Paying for, actually withholding for 290, and doesn't have quite enough cash for the 10. He's shuffling trains over, so it looks like we'll be seeing a 10 pick up by the ATA. Did have to buy that train against operating order, which is a little bit less efficient, but still going to put pressure the other presidencies with this. Looking to bypass the narrow gauge track down south, and runs for 200, which I imagine we'll see him pay. Buying the first 10, this rusts the 6, and AFG is falling back trainless. So Comics Reader has had a lot of kind of tough breaks this game, and is going to be out of pocket for the 10 train. Not going to bankrupt him. He has a pretty healthy treasury. Will secure himself the cheap permanent, but is falling a little bit behind here. Also in danger because maybe running the IFT in the next operating round, depending on how aggressive Vantog wants to play. AFG, he is deferring track and will have to out of pocket the 10, which is now available. So we're looking at the 12 trains, and I don't think any of the companies are in a position to pick this up. We'll have to wait for a new float. Actually, the RCS is close, and with a withhold, we'll get there. So may see that come out actually. Going to be painful for him to withhold, but um, may need to do it, or else he's running the risk of missing out on any of these cheap trains. Very underwhelming track for the RCS so far. IFT upgrading Catania, running an 8 train, and he's paying for 240. RCS running his 8, can get another DIT, but again, just really not a high revenue company. And he lost his second train, so unfortunately never was able to run 2 trains with this company. He pays out, which means he will not be picking up the 12, and is actually going to redeem some of the shares that he issued at the last stock round, or last operating round. ATA, 2 trains for him, should be able to run from Calabria to the port, which is always a very nice run. Not quite reaching right now. I thought that you could make that run with a 10. Maybe you need the 12. Instead, going to double tap in Catania and pays for 430. So Vantog is in a very strong position and probably will be dumping that IFT and floating a second company for himself to push trains. AFG, upgrading Syracusa, can secure that token, but really not in too much competition for it. The IFT might look for it, but the IFT is also probably going to lose that, will definitely lose that token to Messina, might need to save that for up north. He is not tokening for now and running a 10 train for 240, which he pays. Into the next stock round, Corian with priority, Vantog leading with cash and also kind of running away with net worth right now. I imagine we'll see him dumping and then pushing the other players. MJ Mill still has not managed to start a company or buy in his privates and is very soon going to be losing the opportunity to. So bad position for him. Corian buying the RCS. This company has been kind of a dog the entire game. Vantog, he buys an AFG surprisingly, and looks like he's not actually going to be dumping the IFT. I would have been worried about that if I was a comics reader, who is sharing my concern, sees the danger, sells out of the IFT, and does he look to float another company? He's going to have a hard time spending all this cash if he doesn't. So it looks like he's selling more fully out and is going to be max parring the SFA, it looks like. SFA pars at 140, going to have a ton of cash to push trains. This is bad news for everybody that was hoping to pick up one of these cheaper permanent trains, the IFT RCS in particular. But it looks like their window has kind of closed. There are the reverse 6s that will become available, but those are always a good way to end up in second place, probably. Continuing to capitalize his new SFA. Corian buying another RCS. And MJ Mill, he is helping to capitalize the SFA as well. Corian out of cash. Vantog, ton of cash, almost at cert limit, and he will buy an IFT. So maybe just resign to running this company. He's going to struggle a little bit to find a permanent train for it. Comics reader looks like he has 1 share left, and he buys an RCS. Double share now available for this company. Vantog may look to sell the AFG, which is no longer going to be dumpable if he does, and then pick up that double share just for a little extra share density. Vantog instead selling his own IFT and does snag the double share. Looks like the Well, actually, Corian is changing things up a little bit, also selling out of the IFT, and he buys the AFG share that was actually, sorry, he's selling the AFG and buys the double share of the ATA. Permanent train in that company, very reasonable to pick that up. This may leave Vantog with priority though, which is dangerous since he's so far in the lead already. And we'll pass into the next stock round. Vantog no longer has the ability to dump the IFT. Comics Reader identified the danger there and sold out. But Vantog is going to be pulling further ahead with some good track, whereas the SFA is not going to be running the first round, obviously, and then just has pretty poor potential in terms of track development. SFA looking to link up in the short term with the RCS, and we'll be snagging this 12 train, which is going to be pretty bad for the IFT and ATA, who are enjoying the runs into Messina and Calabria right now. Unfortunate for them that this happened right at the start of this phase of operating rounds, as it's going to hurt them for several runs now. RCS, upgrading Palermo and running for 110, just kind of incrementally increasing its runs, but again, going to be struggling to afford a good permanent train. Pays out 110. ATA needs to be careful as well. Does have the permanent train, but that A train is going to be going away pretty soon. Has bypassed the narrow gauge down south and is hitting Messina. Big jump in its revenue with the Messina tile blowing up. IFT single train. May look to withhold and redeem some of its shares. He's going to need a permanent train for this company in the near future. Runs for 210, pretty good revenue, actually pays it out. AFG, last company in this set. He is upgrading DITs, going to get a few extra bucks and also potentially be able to bypass all this narrow gauge. Does secure the token in Syracusa. A little bit surprised we didn't see the IFT snag that, but as noted, maybe saving that for Messina. Running for 260, which he's actually withholding. He has a permanent train, so where is he looking to spend this money? He's also really in a bad part of the market, not at danger of closing, but stock appreciation is going to be, kind of hard for him, only increasing by $5-6. Next phase, SFA getting closer to RCS almost certainly, but laying some very expensive track to do it. Actually doesn't have the cash on hand to lay track, which is kind of unfortunate for him. So just going to get an extra $10, but really pathetic run for him. Just 90, which he pays out. RCS, upgrading Palermo again, so now running for 150, which they pay. ATA still running 2 trains, really good for him that the train rush has stalled here, but he's so far ahead, it's going to be hard for anybody to change this, I think. Upgrading Ragusa, happy to pay the money for it, and now running for 390, which he pays. IFT, single 8 train, and no track for him, just going to look like he's paying out. AFG, permanent train, and he is interested in getting to the RCS home as well. So going to actually spend some money to upgrade the DIT, and he's running for 270, which he pays. RCS, is he going to slowly make any progress over to Messina here? Looks like he's finally going to be doing that. Has taken a detour to upgrade Palermo twice prior to this. Running for 150, and he pays. SFA running the 12, but just a really not good run. Has a ton of cash again, and will be working on over to Palermo. ATA still running 2 trains, and just kind of min-maxing the runs down south. IFT paying for 210. AFG completes the link up into Palermo. No tokens for him, unfortunately, so we'll not be able to block anybody from that. But I don't know that he was looking to run through Palermo. Probably just wants to reach it for a little extra cash. Gonna have to run a ton of narrow gauge track, which is really gonna hurt winning just a 10 train. So for now, not even running that. but may look to run that when he has a 16, or if he has a 16. Into the next stock round, Vantdog has a very commanding lead and does have train liability in the IFT, but someone looks like they're going to have to probably float a company to bring out this 16 unless the RCS wants to withhold a couple times to do it. CTL, of course, is a death sentence at this point, so I don't know that anybody's going to be really eager to float this because they will be putting themselves in last place to hurt the player in first, but probably not enough to um, take away his victory at this point. Vantog, of course, at his cert limit, could look to sell a share to min-max his portfolio, but with a double share in the RCS, not going to be selling that. Um, and the AFG has permanent trains. Could sell an IFT, but runs the risk of losing the presidency if he were to do this. May want to just hold on to that and start withholding for a better train. But probably no matter what he decides here, going to be kind of hard for him to lose the game at this point. So he's passing MJ Mill, a ton of shares to make up and not a whole lot of cash to do it with. He is buying the IFT. Could, in theory, pressure the presidency here, but I don't know that Vantdog is all that worried about it. Has plenty of ways to defend. Comics, he is buying his own SFA. Corian, buying the AFG, which will be floating up now. Vantdog, he's just passing. We'll probably watch to see if MJ Mill pushes for another share of the IFT, which he is just trashing. MJ Mill does have enough cash to float the CTL, but it'll be a pretty weak float, and he's going to need a very expensive train for a company that really can't run it. So, not entirely sure where he's looking to put his money here, but he's kind of in a rough spot no matter what he does. Selling more shares, so maybe telegraphing that he is looking to float the CTL, and I think that's what we will see. He floats it for max par. Is going to have to buy or get some help, buying the 16 train. Conmix, he is looking to help, probably recognizes that MJ Mill is trying to help the table by pulling Vantdog back a little bit, but Comics wasn't willing to bite the bullet on the CTL himself, but willing to buy a share for the cause. Corian, he is not interested in cooperating and just paying shares in the ATA. Probably won't see this 8 train run again, so a little bit less attractive than it has been. Vantdog, he's just passing. MJ Mill passing Comics, he is passing as well. And Corian still has some shares to buy. He will buy the CTL now. So the CTL pretty close to 16 train money with help of the rest of the table. And Corian will buy a second share in the CTL. I don't know that he really wants that many shares in that company. It's going to be pretty bad. And they have left Vantdog with priority, so even though he's going to be having his train rust, has no problem out of pocketing a 16 if he wants it. Could even buy a reverse train if he wants. Doesn't really have good track for that with the IFT, um, but with a token in Messina, I guess could run it reasonably well. CTL first operate and should be buying the 16 here. RCS trainless is going to have to fall back and buy a permanent train here. Looks like he is buying the reverse train. Does have all this narrow gauge track to take advantage of, but that is a very underwhelming RCS. ATA permanent train, not concerned by the rusting event. He's upgrading Messina, which will benefit both of his presidencies. Running for 320 now, which he pays. IFT, no cash in the treasury really, so going to be expensive out of pocket, but he's so far ahead, I don't think it is going to change the outcome. Upgrades Messina, and probably should look at the more expensive train. Could buy the reverse. Oh, actually, sorry, both reverses have been bought. Who bought the other one? RCS actually picked them both up. Okay. Just to hurt the IFT a little bit more. The RCS is going to have a hard time running those trains for anything worthwhile. And he buys the 16 for $1,100 out of pocket, which is pretty harsh, but again, still in the lead and pretty convincingly so, given that he has one more share than Corian and has much better runs. SFA, he links up the CTL. CTL can token to get better runs for himself, but unfortunately just really going to be underwhelming. And the SFA could actually token him out at Palermo too if he's not feeling generous, which he immediately does. So a little bit unclear to me why he linked up there. Running a 12 train. I guess he just wants to avoid all this narrow gauge track and may look to head over to Messina. There is a little bit of a standoff here between the RCS and the SFA. Whoever lays this track opens up the link up with Messina for the other company. And they both have tokens. SFA paying for 250, and AFG still with a permanent train. He's just upgrading DITs, running for 270, which he pays. CTL into the next operating set, or next operating round of the set, has already been tokened out and is going to have just really miserable runs for the rest of the game. Laying a DIT, because he is such a long train, running for 240, pays that out. RCS, 2 reverse trains. We'll see if he is able to parlay this into a run worth anything. Can double tap Palermo, which makes every run pretty good, but I imagine we'll see the IFT and ATA operating enough to overcome him. Upgrading a DIT and paying for 320, so it ends up being decent run, but I think the IFT and ATA are able to exceed that. 350 for the ATA with just a 10 train. And the SFA, he is upgrading a DIT as well. So both of these players probably recognizing the danger of laying the track towards Messina. And this is probably very good news for Vantog, who is able to take advantage of these nice runs with no competition from the other players. He cannot defend the Messina track as the ATA has no tokens. Running for 290 and paying that out. IFT 16 train probably has a longer train than it really needs, unfortunately. But I don't imagine he's going to be eager to lay track for the other companies into Messina. So he's passing track, running for 350, and actually withholding. That's surprising. Not sure what he's looking to buy with this money. I don't imagine he wants to withhold all the way for another 16 train. But with that withhold is going to put himself in pretty close contention with Corian. I think Vantog still should be able to take this game, but if he just withholds, I guess Corian might be able to sneak past him. We'll see what he uses that money for. AFG, he is upgrading the SFA home and running for 270. CTL, still really no good track. Just working on getting down to the SFA home, but it's going to take him a long time to do it. 250, which he pays out. RCS, probably the same runs, and running for 330 now. ATA, he is running for 350. I think the IFT and the ATA will probably be running for 350 for the rest of the game, unless the IFT withholds for something crazy. SFA, he is also upgrading his home. RCS secured a token down there. Doesn't block anyone. A little bit confused about that. Running for 290 and pays out. AFG, just a single 10 train. And he actually breaks the stalemate here. So this means that the RCS company probably will be securing a token in Messina. In terms of operating order, the RCS is operating, guaranteed basically to operate ahead of the SFA. I guess supposedly, in theory, that could change if the SFA were to float up and the RCS were not to. But surprised that he would, potentially surrender that token to the RCS. IFT, he is running for the 350 and he pays it out this time. So I guess maybe just redeeming shares for the IFT company. I don't explain that withhold another way. He's shuffling trains over, but leaving the cash in the IFT. So he's going to dump the ATA on Corian. He didn't have to withhold to do this. The companies were operating well far away from one another um, in terms of operating order. So it's not like he had to withhold to change the operating order. Um, ATA does run the risk of being tokened out of Messina, but since he's dumping it on the president of the RCS, I suppose this means that the SFA may get the token after all if the RCS doesn't secure it. Basically, the ATA is going to get tokened out of Messina almost certainly. And if Corian doesn't token himself out, SFA will be happy to do it for him, I'm sure. Yeah, so I'm not sure why this company withheld, but it will be enough for a dump on Corian. Did the IFT not have enough cash um, to buy a train over? Was it at $0? That may be the case because he had to emergency buy that 16. So maybe he just didn't have cash in the company without the withhold to buy a train over. Looks like he has treasury shares though. Um, so he should have had some cash in the company. He redeemed one share. Did he redeem both of these shares? He may have redeemed them both. Okay, so if he had to withhold in order to have cash to do the dump, reasonable. I don't think it's necessary for him to dump and win. I think if he just continued to pay out, he would have won the game anyways. But I think he's just styling on the other players at this point. So Vantdog, he is dumping, and he will probably steal the double cert here. Um, Vantdog does have plenty of opportunities to invest his cash still, so even though he's sold out, shouldn't be running into trouble about hitting his cert limit. He actually chose two 10% limit certs instead of the double cert. A little bit surprised by that. I suppose he doesn't want there to be a dump back on him by holding 20% of the company, which the other players could arrange since they operate between him and Corian. So he's just playing it safe. And what I mean by that is that if he had held 20%, you could see MJ Mill and Comics Read buy one share in the ATA, clear the market enough for Corian to dump back down, basically. Um, no guarantees that would happen, but it is the safer play to just stay at 10%. He buys his IFT, MJ Mill. He will buy a CTL. I don't know about that. Comics Reader is passing. Corian, unfortunately, has been victimized by Vantdog, who is probably going to win the game anyways. Does have one more share he can buy with this presidency change, and is just passing, kind of resigning himself to his fate. Vantdog, happy that nobody is buying shares really, and will just buy back up to a cert limit, I'm sure. Buys his IFT, maxed out there. MJ Mill, he buys an RCS. And Comics Reader is passing Corian. He buys an IFT as well. Double share is exposed. Buying an SFA. Everybody, well, MJ Mill and Comics Reader probably passing here, although that double IFT share is quite attractive. Comics Reader may want to sell some shares to snap that up. He sells a CTL, which is an expensive company with poor revenue and should be snapping up that IFT, which he does. Corian's not regretting, but ruining that he wasn't able to get that and is at his cert limit. He's selling an AFG and buys a CTL. Surprised? So he exposes the double share here. Vantdog does have the cash to buy it and will instead buy the double share of the SFA. So a little bit more revenue there, but I think the stock appreciation probably favors the CTL. It's probably pretty close in terms of which of these companies is better in terms of revenue or total value added. Corian, he sells some IFT and should be picking up the CTL double share, I think. He does. And everybody's at their cert limits except for MJ Mill. And everybody has all the double shares that they want. So probably everybody will be passing here. Should be the last last operating round as well. Vantdog making some small adjustments, selling out of the AFG, and he's got some options. Could look to buy the CTL. Technically has higher revenue, or has higher net worth value as a result of its higher stock price. And it looks like he's going to be doing that, floating that company up. Everyone else passing. Priority doesn't matter as we'll be seeing the bank break. Doesn't look like we will be entering the game endgame trigger. Just shy of that because the CTL was sold down once. CTL's operation continuing to head down south, but really not going to improve his run at all. Actually, withholding can buy a second 16 train. I don't think that'll be enough to extend the game, and it's not going to really improve its run very much. He buys an RCS, reverse 6 from the RCS, buys it against operating order. We'll have some cheap trains to shuffle into the ATA, so the ATA dump is not going to be as painful as it otherwise might have been. And with the RCS, should be able to secure the token into Messina. Looks like he'll be running a 16 train into there. So this will actually be kind of close. The dump from Vantdog might end up being a mistake here. Secures the token, does token out the ATA, but the ATA is probably going to be running a reverse train anyways. So not sure that he cares that much about that token at this point. And he should be picking up a 16 train here, which he's going to run to pretty great effect. SFA, upgrading some DITs, and withholding, going to be a little bit closer to a 16 train as a result, but we'll have to withhold again to make it happen. And does the market break before he operates again? Probably not. So we may see the game extended with a bunch of 16 train buys. That said, 3 operating rounds, I think will probably still break. ATA, going to be buying a reverse train into this company probably. And actually buys the 16 train out of CTL. CTL is going to be just running a reverse 6, so he's been able to shuffle his trains pretty well. ATA has a nice run for itself, and so does the RCS. Vantdog running 2 trains in the IFT is going to have a pretty nice run. And needs to make sure that he's able to stay ahead of Corian, who's going to be running 3 companies, all with pretty good runs at this point. Running for 590 and pays that out. So the market has $3,000 in it, and we are looking at probably, I thought that we were going to see another 16 train coming out, but it looks like the SFA withheld and then just shuffled trains around. So I think we will still see the market break here. CTL actually declining to link up with the SFA at this point, just laying some narrow gauge track for its reverse 16 or reverse 6. Runs for 90 and pays it out. RCS should have a really monstrous run now. And he's running for 560, which I believe is pretty close to what the IFT was running, 590. So it'll be kind of close. SFA running 2 trains now and paying for 490. ATA, let's see how good the run is now that he has a 16 train. 410, nothing to sneeze at. AFG running for 380, which he pays. IFT still running probably for 590 and pays that out. So market is at $900, and just looking at the value here, Vantdog has been running for just a little bit more than Corian and is far enough ahead that he has this game all sewn up. So we'll just skip to the end here. Vantdog takes it. Comic actually comes in second, is able to edge out Corian just by $100, and MJ Mill brings up the rear. So the dump from Vantdog probably wasn't necessary for him to win, but didn't end up costing him the game either. Well played to him. He was in the lead for most of this game. Comics, I believe he was the IFT player, ends up in second, so was able to recover his game a little bit. Had a little bit of a rough time in the start, but came back. Corian was obviously in contention and just left himself open to an unfortunate dump, which is going to put him in third. And MJ Mill just trailed the entire game. Doesn't look like he ever really had a presidency. He wasn't able to buy in his privates. I just want to look back at the auction for a moment and see what put him in that position. So MJ Mill, um, I guess he's the player that way overpaid for this private. He went up to like 170, if I recall, 175. So I think fair to say probably lost the game in the auction. Fantog is the player that bid him up there, um, and he's the ultimate winner. So this game, may come back down to the auction. There were, of course, important things in the mid game and that kind of thing, but um, the first and last place players were determined right on the bids for the Societa Maritima. Interesting game. Thanks for watching. We'll be back in the future.